Hello everyone. In this book tip video, which I'm doing outside because we're moving, I don't have any place to be. All the stuff is all over the place. So the street is my office. The book I want to talk about is written by Johan Brelin, a Swedish sailor on the East Indian Company. He was out at the sea between 1755 to 1757, and his book was published in 1758. In that book he shares very interesting and enjoyable stories, accounts and observations done by a sailor, a captain to be, while in China, while in Java, in Brazil and in Portugal, months after the earthquake. So adventurous stories from the 1700s are nothing rare, but for me, I found out about him and his book when I read the book about the Swedish slave in Morocco, Marcus Berg. So both of them mention one another at the end of their books, and the thing I like about reading older books is the language, the pace of the written word, what words were used back then, which have kind of, you know, changed or are not used anymore. What loan words were they using? So whatever language you speak or read, you can always find some older versions of your language or the language you understand and read, because it's very interesting to get that first-hand description of events. You can read accounts of people during and after the Lisbon Earthquake, on wars, slavery, adventures and so on. So it's nothing unique, and you can always find titles on archive.org. So to go back to Johan Brelin's book, his journey went fine to China and back, but their ship Sophia Albertina anchored at the island of Ascension, or however you pronounce that, in the middle of the Atlantic. They wanted to catch some turtles to eat them. So a couple of crewmen went out on the island, and unfortunately for him, he injured his leg and got stuck between a crack in a stone or something. So, you know, they abandoned him, his own crewmen, his own countrymen, which is something that he lamented. Even in Amsterdam, where he finally got on the ship which would take him back home to Sweden, together with Marcus Berg. So they actually met, and he also mentions that no matter what kind of hardships he went through, Marcus Berg had much worse situations happening to him. And from that island his story begins. The survival in caves, among rats and scorpions, alone on the island, all until a French ship came and anchored, and it was on a mission to warn other ships, French ships, about the war with England. So they took him in, they saved him and treated him as their own, and when it was time for them to, you know, go back home to their own respective country, it was quite a touching story, because, you know, somebody saved you and you were part of that crew for a couple of years, and yeah, it's emotional. And both Marcus Berg and Johan Brelin accounted of the bad treatment or the negligence which fellow Swedes had towards them in Amsterdam, not wanting to help them out and so on. But they also kind of give another side to it, that, you know, basically people, Swedes, lived in Amsterdam, they wanted to live their lives. Some of them might have helped other Swedes and got kind of ripped off or cheated. So people want to live their life and not always be available as beacon of salvation for fellow countrymen lost from the sea. But of course they did get help, otherwise they wouldn't be back home writing their books. So that goes to show you, people didn't take care more about one another back then. It's always the same. A neighbor can do nothing while a stranger might help you forever. How sudden the wind just stopped and everything is calm. I had to stop there and just hear if any of what was being said was coming through. Not much is known about Johan Brelin, but thanks to the Royal Library in Stockholm, you can search for anything which has been mentioned in the newspapers going back to like 1600s or something. And that is very interesting, especially when you are looking for something older, because as time progressed, more and more newspapers came into existence and much more reference were available. So anyway, he became a priest. Oh, sorry. He became a priest and inventor. Apparently his father was very inventive, so he got that stroke from him. And one of his descriptions from China is very interesting. He goes into very much detail about like kitchen utensils and stoves and stuff, and he mentions how that could be used in Sweden. And it's very peculiar to read a regular person's accounts of something, you know, from back in the days where cultures were different, where people wore different clothes and costumes depending on where you came, you know, what continent, what country. So he became a priest and an inventor, just like his father. And he got married the 8th of March in 1765. And I found an article about his estate inventory, which is done after you pass away. And that article was from 1782. So that was the year he probably died.